First of all, thank you ever so much for inviting me. I'm going to be talking from a Christian perspective and also from sort of experience of being part of a interfaith youth charity, being an eco champion at my church, working with young people, and also sort of, I also sort of work for an organisation called Eco Birmingham, which is originally from the Quakers. So here we go. A couple of things I want to cover. First of all, what's the big picture with Christian young people? I'm very fortunate. Someone else did the work for me. So all this will be links at the end of the presentation, which we sent round that later on. But in 2020, there was a big piece of research done at what do young Christians think about climate change in the UK. And as you can see from the slide, there's a huge amount of concern about its importance, but also the perception that church isn't doing enough, and also some key asks from young Christians back to their congregations. And it's a really nice one there under climate activism, which talks about a young person talking about we're called to be stewards of our planet, to love our neighbours, living out these commands in an exciting way, worshipping God. And that's really the essence of the sort of Christian response. So another part of the research is really, and this might chime with some other faith groups here, they also ask young people, what makes it distinctive being a Christian and being a climate activist? How does your faith help? And we've already heard from some speakers about that. And again, there's lots of examples here. A couple of ones from my own perspective helped me. There's one there about hope in Jesus makes activism more emotionally sustainable. It is really hard, but actually having a faith or a belief that that someone's alongside you is going to help you is really, really helpful for sustaining activism. And also the one around point 5 I found particularly helpful. There's a really difficult balance, I think, of the brilliant stuff Extinction Rebellion done about creative activism, creative protest, but also working with others that are different from you. So this isn't exclusive to Christian faith, but it's quite interesting. That's what young people were saying was important for their faith and their activism. So bringing it back to sort of a practical example, I'm going to sort of go from the big picture down to the small, which is basically the church I go to in Birmingham. You can see it's a diverse church, 40 languages. Over a third are under the age of 18, so you've got a very young congregation. It's very diverse, it's part of the inner city, and we basically run a range of activities, worship services and community activities from buildings. So we worked, our young people and other members of the congregation said, we want to do something, what's the best way? And for us, there's a scheme called Eco Church. It's really good, it's free, you can basically do a survey and it starts saying these are the things you could start doing in your congregation. So that's what we did. We conducted an Eco Church survey, not just young people, but all the members of the congregation. So it's really important, that intergenerational bit. And this is sort of near the end now. What did we achieve by working together intergenerationally? Lots of things, but the things I would highlight, one is the governance, but it's got to be seen as something you do together, not just a few people in the corner. So actually getting a plan agreed by the church council with a budget. And also part of that process, we've now got 2 young people on our council, not just to represent environmental issues, but just to represent a third of our congregation wasn't being represented. Built it into our teaching, lots of building stuff. We don't have solar panels, but there's lots of other things you can do. One slight word of warning, it's all very well saying let's go plastic free, but please talk to the people that do all the shared lunches for hundreds of people before you do that, because quite often we're finding decisions being made, but actually, does that mean that there's more volunteers to do washing up? So you find those sort of things involving working with people. In terms of community engagement, we've done a lot of joint work with the mosque and other faith groups such as litter picks, cycle rides discussing our faith, and that's been a really positive experience of focusing on the environment in our community to do action together. So other speakers have talked about that as well. I think one of the challenges we've found is the lifestyle bit. So we're doing the teaching, we're changing stuff in the buildings, but it's how do you bring the whole congregation with you about lifestyle? What's that mean for people from very diverse backgrounds to follow Jesus and care for the environment without sort of sending people on a guilt trip? So that's a journey. That's where we are at the moment. So really interesting to find out other people's views about how they've brought different members of their worshipping groups with them. Last slide, these are sort of useful resources, hopefully. If you haven't come across them before, there's something called the Young Christian Climate Network. They're also sort of doing a sort of part of this pilgrimage that's been mentioned. So that's well worth having a look at. And there's a range of other things there as well. I would just put a plug for the feast. There's something called Guidelines for Dialogue. And it's been really useful about having conversations with different people, different faith groups in a constructive manner. And I've learned lots by doing that, and delighted to be along here today to learn more. So that's a bit of a whistle-stop tour. Christians and young Christians, particularly in the UK, view this as important. We've got a long way to go with our churches, but we're getting there. And there's lots of resources, and we're very, very willing to work with others on this journey. So thank you very much.